All right. All right, all right, all right. Welcome in, everybody. It is October 7th, 2025. I hope all of you have had an amazing week since our last live stream. The news has been very, very slow as of this week, and I think I have an explanation for it. So we're going to talk about some of that today. We got a lot of stuff to talk about in terms of Ukraine with the map and everything. We got a lot of hot pockets, as you can tell by the title, going on. But it's good to see everybody in here. Remember, I like to know where you guys are listening from. So if you want to throw that up, be sure to do that. Be sure to also follow me on Telegram and Twitter if you guys are not following me on those locations yet. You'll get updated on all my live streams, and you'll get a bunch more content about my posts, stuff about Ukraine, stuff about geopolitics all over the world. You can find those links in the description of this video. You can also find my Buy Me a Coffee. If you guys want to support my work, all of the money from my Buy Me a Coffee goes back into my setup for Calibrated for you guys. So I appreciate that. Let's see. Hello from Toronto, Canada. Beautiful. Beautiful. Hello, ACA, Aka, Nopwalks. Good to see you. Hot Pockets. Yes. Good evening from Catalina, Sicily. Good to see you again. You're my one island viewer from Catalina. Hello from North Korea. I doubt it, but good to see you. Gold closed at $4,000. Yeah, that's fake. That's not even a real thing. I mean, it is real. It's obviously a real thing, but that's crazy. Gold closing at $4,000 is insane. Hello from Israel. Hello. Hello from Toronto, Canada. I already said that, Mr. Kim. Hello from Greenland. Bangkok, Thailand. Awesome. Belarus. Awesome. Nice, guys. I'll buy you some horchata instead. I'm from a speedboat near Venezuela. Get out of there. Run. Atlanta. Beautiful, guys. Dubai. Happy tomorrow in Dubai to you, my good man. Hello from Sevastopol. Nice to see you from Sevastopol. Hello from London, Spain, Indiana. First live I've been able to catch. Well, welcome in, and Cozy. Good to see you. Hi from UK. Greetings from French New Guinea. Hello from New Zealand. Got a Kiwi in here. Nice, guys. Hello from Tripoli, Libya. Nice. Nice, guys. Nice. Denver. Nice. It's so funny to see like New Zealand and like Tripoli, Sevastopol, St. Petersburg, and then it's like Denver, which is funny to me because that's like 6 hours away from me, which is like not far away if you live in America. What thing do you use for your thumbnails? Do you think I'm going to give all my secrets away? All of my industry secrets? I just use Adobe. Looks like a 5-year-old made it. That's what's good with it. Hello from Slovenia. Good enough, guys. Good enough. Welcome in, everybody. Glad to see so many people in here from around the world, per usual. Remember, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. It is the easiest way to support me, and it is the easiest way to catch all of my videos. I will be doing a full map update video, probably posting that tomorrow. There's a lot of movement going on right now, so I'm kind of hesitant because I think we're going to get some geolocations tomorrow that's going to improve the map. But other than that, let's get on with the show, shall we? Remember, if you guys have any questions, any topics that you want to discuss, you can always throw those up in the chat. I'll be looking over there from time to time. If you have questions that you want answered live, I always answer super chats, just so you guys know. All right. Okay, so as you can tell by today's episode, we have another series of Hot Pockets. I've done 2 episodes on my channel titled Hot Pockets. They happen from time to time, whether it is the Ukrainians stuck in Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, whether that it is the Ukrainians stuck in Bakhmut and Soledar, whether it is the Ukrainians stuck in Kharkov or Ugledar or Velika Novosilka, or whatever pocket the AFU decides to hold for far too long, we end up getting episodes entitled Hot Pocket or Hot Pockets or Hot Pockets again. And today is no exception. I'm just going to take us over to the map just so I can show you guys some of the events happening. And really what I want to show you is how the Russian summer offensive into summer-fall offensive is really now starting to culminate, and we are beginning to see the tangible results from all of the offensive operations that have been taking place since May or June of this year. So zooming in to the Kupyansk front, the city of Kupyansk is in a very, very, very bad way right now for the AFU. In fact, there is an active encirclement, this blue area here that you can see, which leads into the central areas of Kupyansk, is the only area that the Ukrainians are currently maintaining. Russians have pushed down the Oskil into this marketplace over here. They have also pushed into the southern edge of the city, capturing the hospital and university area right here. So the one of the major objectives, the achievements of the entire war in Ukraine for the Ukrainian military was the decisive capture of Kupyansk in 2022, right? They pushed the Russians all the way back behind the Oskil, back over here. The Russians have slowly been pushing out. Once they crossed the Oskil, I personally, as you guys have known, said that the second the Russians have a stable bridgehead across the Oskil River, this won't matter anymore. And that is what is currently happening. I, for a long time, was of the opinion that the Ukrainians should have retreated from this area, set up a very, very strong defensive line along the river, and then just held the river for as long as they possibly could. Instead, they tried to maintain all of their gains that were captured during 2022. And what this has ended up doing is developing these awful encirclements and just tactically nightmarish scenarios for the AFU to continue fighting in. One thing that I do find very interesting is the complete lack of pro-Ukrainian information space even talking about this. There's nobody even referencing the fact that Ukrainian defenders, the bravest men in the world, are encircled in a city. They don't want to talk about that. They're talking about a couple strikes on energy infrastructure in Belgorod and Bryansk from a day ago or 2 days ago, or a refinery strike from a couple days ago, which, by the way, the refinery strikes do seem to be slowing. So that is just one point that I think is very interesting. If this was happening to the Russians, do you think you would ever hear the end of it when it comes to the pro-Ukrainian information space? Because to me, I'm pretty sure Ukraine battle maps or Targari or any of those guys would definitely be talking about how 8,000 Russians are surrounded in Kupyansk and they're about to be slaughtered, right? But when it's Ukrainians trapped in a nightmarish situation, it's crickets, right? They are actively losing a city and we're not even hearing about it. It's one of the most surprising aspects of this conflict to me. And I see it a lot in the Western-backed groups. So like the pro-Israeli group, anybody who's like super pro-U.S. foreign policy right now, which is just crazy to me if you are that. Anybody who's pro-Ukrainian, whatever, pro-Taiwan or anything like that. They never seem to acknowledge their own shortcomings, their own failures, their own issues that they're dealing with. The propaganda machine can only work in this direction. It can't go backwards. It can't admit failure. And that is very weird to me, because if a refinery in Russia is struck, right, me, the Kremlin bot, posts about it, right? I talk about every refinery hit. I talked about the power stations, the TPPs in Belgorod and Bryansk getting struck. These are all material facts that matter to the war. One of the reasons I think we lose so aggressively time and time again in these battles that we choose to take is that we never course correct. We never adjust. We never make the necessary changes, because that would be an admission of failure. And that admission of failure is almost worse for some reason to us than the failure itself, right? Like the impacts, the potential impacts that we foresee from admitting failure go so far beyond the actual impacts of the failure itself. So very interesting. Nobody's talking about an active encirclement of Ukrainian troops. They should be like, hey, we need to get our guys out of here. This is really bad. Not a word. Nobody's even talking about this area. Nobody wants to talk about it. This area is just forgotten and gone, and Kupyansk will likely fall in the coming days. This will also create a massive expansion out of Kupyansk. The flower of Kupyansk will begin to blossom. And that is also going to create a secondary hot pocket over on this bank of the Oskil, which the Ukrainians will be forced to retreat from. So yeah, it's just overstaying your welcome, and then not ever being willing to do the militaristically correct action over the, or in lieu of choosing the propaganda victory. All right, I'm going to take you down to another section of the front. This one was supposed to be a hot pocket that we talked about. Ukrainian forces stuck in Mirne, the two fortifications here. Right before I came on stream, we got confirmation that that pocket had closed. So this pocket has now closed, and the Russians are now in a much, much more aggressive position to push towards Stavki and towards Liman in general. Expect a massive amount of movement on this front in the coming weeks, especially as the foliage begins to drop. We should see the Russians quickly take over this forested area to the east of Liman and to the west of Yampil. So this entire area here should come under Russian control. Once that happens, expect Seversk to be pushed almost immediately. Again, as the Russians make it down towards this, this is a chalk quarry right here. That's what they call it, at least. And we've seen Russian FPVs harassing Ukrainian vehicles in this region. Once the Russians get down here and cut this line of communications to Seversk, Seversk is going to be pushed and likely captured in short order. That is something that is going to happen very quickly now. As you can see, the Bakhmutivka River cuts Seversk in half. This pocket is already incredibly tight, and it is reported that that Russian forces have entered the main urban area of Seversk, because technically Serbanivka and Dranivka are all in Seversk. So technically the Russians are already in Seversk, but not in the actual urban conglomerate yet. At least we don't have geolocations of that. We have early reporting that the Russians have entered in this area here. Okay. So guys, big pockets, big movements developing. A secondary encirclement has developed here in Klebanbik, where the Ukrainian forces on the southern end of this reservoir are trapped. They will have to take boats or swim across this reservoir to escape. And in fact, by this time, this update is slightly older. By this time, this might be entirely vacated of Ukrainian troops. It might be under Russian control. We just don't have geolocations for that. And then finally, I want to talk about the last pocket that is developing or has already developed but continues to progress. And that would be the Pokrovsk pocket. And here in Pokrovsk, we can see that Russian forces have captured all of these high-rise buildings in the Shkatarisky neighborhood of Pokrovsk. That means that Pokrovsk is now probably about 50% under Russian control. I imagine most of this area is in gray zone south of the railroad, and then the northern part is still under Ukrainian control. As you can see, Russian forces are advancing in the furthest edges of the pocket as logistics becomes tighter and as this area becomes less and less tactically sound for the Ukrainians. So this is a major hot pocket. This is like Bakhmut in comparison. There are a ton of Ukrainian troops in this region, and they are being pushed in to hold Pokrovsk and Minhorod. This is a bleeding operation, guys. This does not need to go fast. Pokrovsk does not need to be captured tomorrow. The Ukrainians do not have the manpower to hold this and maintain areas such as Dnipropetrovsk, Zaporozhye, where we see the Russians are clearly on a breakthrough in this region. I mean, this is 13, 23, 36. Wait, hold on. 1, 3, 15. It's like 50 square kilometers captured here, at least. So the Russians are moving very quickly through the Zaporozhye, Dnipropetrovsk region, and this is just going to continue to accelerate. There are no solid fortifications in this region. And guys, I'm going to make a prediction here very, very quickly. What we're going to see is the Russians push out from this location towards the highway, right? They're going to continue to push out from this entire location, and they're going to quickly develop the northern flank of Holyai-Polye like this. This is going to how it's going to develop. It's going to develop very quickly. I'm just going to do this and create another prediction line here. We're going to go orange, and we're going to go like that. And you can see that this is how I think the Russians are going to develop the line north of Holyai-Polye, and then it will eventually put Holyai-Polye into what? Can anybody in the chat tell me what Holyai-Polye will become once the Russians cross the, what is the river here? The Yanchur River, which they are basically pressed up against, and cross into the Holyai-Polye region over here. Does anybody know what that's going to create? You know. 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 Yeah, we got some smart guys in here. You guys listen. That's what I like about you guys, is that you are good listeners. So let's move this prediction down into our prediction slot. Where did I put that line? Where are you, silly line? Where did I put it? Oh, right there. We're going to put that in the prediction, and then you can see my other prediction has already basically come correct. And you can see that the Russians are matching this yellow line, which is the Yanchur River. And you can see how it is progressing exactly basically how I said it would progress, sort of on a diagonal out across this entire region. It is likely that the Ukrainians will retreat behind the Yanchur River within the coming days, like we saw down here, just because it's incredibly difficult to hold this region, and there are no large fortifications. So the Russians are currently through the large fortification line here. There is nothing really left to defend them until they reach this Yanchur River, where there is a defense line set up right here. However, it is pretty thin, and it's not necessarily going to hold the Russians for any discernible amount of time. All right, guys. We are good, Goyam. All right. All right. If you guys have questions or topics that you want me to cover, go ahead and type that in. If you guys have an area of the map you would like me to talk about, realistically, I'm in a position right now where I'm sort of waiting. I think that, I mean, just globally, I think that we are staring down the barrel of multiple events, multiple happenings happening very shortly. I think that we will see one of two of the current regime changes be executed. Whether that is Venezuela or Iran has yet to be determined. I think this will be incredibly dangerous for the U.S. I think at a time when you are trying to put a lot of pressure on the Russian energy economy, going after one of two oil-producing nations that is not Russia and that is not your ally, is a very dangerous endeavor to undertake. If Venezuela's oil is disrupted or oil in the Middle East is disrupted, it will have terrible consequences on U.S. planning and also the European economies. They just will not be able to withstand it. So I think we're running out of time. I think we are up against the wall and sort of backed into a corner. We need something to happen somewhere very quickly. And I do believe that that somewhere will be Iran. I think we are going to see another exchange between Israel and Iran, which will then be used as the casus belli, whatever you want to call it, for further U.S. strikes against the Iranian regime, further reducing its power, its projection, its capabilities, hurting its economy further. And then we might see another pause. This is the thing about the U.S. is they don't have to beat a country all at once. They can do a 12-day exchange and then stop, right? Because they control they're the ones that are that hunger for the war. The Iranians do not want the war. The U.S. and the Israelis want the war. So they have the ability to start and stop it whenever they wish. And Iran really does not have a ton of options in countering that pressure. We're seeing cargo shipments of aircraft to Iran, potentially MiGs and Su-35s. I just want to go ahead and let you guys know that it takes a half decade to incorporate an air force. This is not going to happen before 2026. It's probably not going to happen before 2027. Even if you've been training pilots for years beforehand, it still takes an incredible amount of time to incorporate new aircraft into an army, into an air force, and make that work. Let alone do it while you're under extreme external pressure, sanctions pressure. Everything is basically going against you globally. You have a few allies, but you know how Iran is with Russia and China. They are very, or they try to be very independent, which I don't think is the best idea, but that's how their culture and that's the decisions that they've made. I don't see the Iranian regime making it out of this. I think that they've sat on their hands for too long. I think that they've been waiting for just too long to make things happen and to do things and to counter this Israeli threat. They still seem to be willing to negotiate, which is just I can't rationalize that in my brain at all. I can't. After what we've seen, after the continued abuses of the negotiation process, I just don't know how that goes forward. I do think, however, there are some very deep issues between the United States and Israel that are currently developing. I think that there is sort of a kind of an awakening happening in the United States where people are very, very quick to immediately blame Israel for America's problems. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think that Israel is sort of an extremist apartheid state. But I take full responsibility for it as an American, because Israel would not be able to do what it does without the full unconditional backing and support of the U.S. government. And by the way, all of the stuff that Israel is doing in the Middle East also helps the U.S. further its geopolitical objectives in the region, right? We also don't want Iran to have nukes. We also don't want Iran to have a strong axis of resistance in the Middle East. We want to control the Middle East. We want to do that through Israel. So I do think that there are some disagreements, especially with what's going on in Gaza. I think that the Israelis have their own personal domestic objectives when it comes to Gaza that the U.S. is not on board with. I think this is a point of contention. And this, I'm transitioning this into the Gaza peace deal, which is what I'm going to talk about right now. The Trump administration came out with its 21-point peace plan for Gaza. This peace plan had been agreed upon by the Arab states and I think Hamas negotiators, at least in the general ideas of it. Right before this peace proposal was released, Benjamin Netanyahu showed up at the White House. They made some changes. The changes were, it's interesting because Trump comes out and says, oh, the Israelis have agreed, Hamas has agreed, even the Arab states have agreed to this. But they didn't. They all agreed to separate versions of the same peace plan. But just looking at Hamas's response and how Hamas can go forward with this, or the Palestinians, Hamas, I think, made the only move that they could have made that would ensure some sort of Pyrrhic victory for them in the end. And that is to force the Israeli military out of Gaza, force the Israeli government to allow a Palestinian authority, not the Palestinian authority, but a Palestinian government to take over, not an Israeli government, but a Palestinian ran and led coalition inside of the West Bank and Gaza. This also ensures likely the statehood of these two. And at the same time, it allows Israel an off-ramp. And I don't mean Israel is in the government, because we know what Smotrich wants. We know what Bibi wants. We know what the Israeli government wants. We kind of already know what the country of Israel wants. But when you step back, the public Israeli position is freeing the hostages and getting rid of Hamas. And so if Hamas agrees to give up power to a Palestinian authority, a Palestinian government, disarms and gets the amnesty deal that's being offered, they settle the Hamas issue, they get their hostages back, but they don't get to annex the West Bank and Gaza, at least right now. And that right there is probably the best political move that Hamas could make. They're not going to win this militarily. They're going to have Gaza get genocided if that's the goal, right? The best option forward is to create division within the Israeli decision-making core, within the population, and create division between the U.S. and Israel itself, right? And to do that, again, we'll step down, we'll release all the hostages, you just can't take over. And that is I think it's like a 5D chess move from them, which might not be accepted by the Israelis. But if it's not accepted by the Israelis, then the Israelis are the ones that are not working towards peace. That is going to create greater issues inside of Israel, where there is serious pressure to get these hostages released. And the Netanyahu government just doesn't seem interested in that at all. So I think that this is a smart move by Hamas, kind of the only move they have left. And we will see how it plays out. I think that the only opportunity they have is to turn the shifting U.S. opinion even further against Israel. It is the only chance that they have, and that is the course that they seem to be going with. All right, we got some questions here. Lots of conflict. So that's my talk about the Middle East. If you guys have questions, I'll talk about it more, but that's sort of where I'm wrapping it up for now. Lots of conflicting information as to Ukraine's ability to deploy Tomahawk systems. Your thoughts? First and foremost, I don't know if these are even going to be sent. Basically the idea is that if Tomahawks cross the Russian border, the Russians should act as though it is a first strike, because the Tomahawk cruise missile is nuclear capable. So that's my first big red flag with this. I think that the talk about it is very nice. I think that Trump talking and referencing it is very good for PR and publicity. And I'm not saying that they won't send it, because they very well could. But I think that this one carries a lot more risks. And with the current situation developing the way it is in Ukraine, unless the West has just decided that we are at war with Russia and that is the way we are going to go forward, which it could be. I haven't seen that. But if that is the calculation, then we might see Tomahawks deployed to Ukraine. They will have to be deployed in a ground-based launched version, which will reduce its range, but will mean that they're able to strike like some 1,300 kilometers into Russia. And that's going to put a lot of military, political, infrastructural targets on in the crosshairs. It is going to change the dynamics of the battlefield for sure if it does occur. And I expect the Russians to actually do something about this. Attackams, Storm Shadows, that's like a couple, that's like 200 kilometers across your border. It's not the same level of threat that a Tomahawk cruise missile poses for a multitude of reasons. But never say never. I would not doubt that we see those weapon systems in Ukraine eventually. If we've decided that war with Russia is just going to happen in some way with a European state or with something like that. Why send MiGs in the first place if Iran won't, or if it won't give Iran parity? Because they have deals. I mean, the Iranians have purchased aircraft, so the Russians are delivering on those contracts. I think that they will definitely assist the Iranians if they can control their airspace in some way with these missiles, taking down drones, preventing the, enemy aircraft from penetrating their airspace. If they can control the airspace over their missile launching areas, their tunnels and their missile complexes, then it might actually assist them. I'm not saying these planes aren't going to do anything. All I'm saying is it takes like a decade usually to incorporate aircraft into your military at a level that is sufficient to affect a war, right? And just getting aircraft, getting air defenses, getting ships, getting anything is great. It can be useful, but also it's incredibly difficult to mesh all that in a very short period of time and then utilize it properly. So that's all I'm saying. I'd rather have Su-35s than not have any Su-35s, even if, they're not going to last very long or whatever. I'll take anything. Unless Israel or the U.S. uses nukes, there is a low probability they will be able to regime change Iran conventionally. I don't know why you think that. If you turn off all of the lights in Iran and there's no food, eventually people are going to get pretty pissy. I'm not saying that you can bomb them into submission. I'm not saying that you can, I'm not saying that a regime change is necessarily going to be successful even, but to say that you can't regime change a country conventionally it's just not true. We've seen it with Syria. We've seen it with Libya. We've seen it with Iraq. We've seen it in Afghanistan. I mean, there were boots on the ground in some of these occasions, but a majority of what was done and the majority of what the U.S. does is not ground invasion. It's methodical and excessive bombing campaigns that just make everyday life next to impossible. And then it's hard to run a military. It's hard to fight a war when you have 90 million people without power and on the verge of starvation, right? So they definitely can change the regime conventionally. What that regime change looks like, what comes out of that regime change, and how it affects the region, those are completely different topics. Also, if you're going to regime change a country and that country becomes a rogue state, what happens to all that enriched nuclear material? Right? I have a feeling, and you guys can quote me on this, I have a feeling that if we go through with this regime change, that nuclear material will be used by some group, probably funded by the US or Israel, to justify a further war in the future. They got a nuke from Iran. They snuck it out. We got to go after them. They might have nuclear material. They could create a dirty bomb. What are the odds? you create your own problems, and then you create more problems that you have to solve off of those problems. So it's pretty impressive. After the fall of Kupyansk, what are your predictions? I think that the entire region is going to basically start expanding out. Let's get rid of some of these upcoming predictions. So as soon as Kupyansk falls, and it'll probably be as soon as this entire region is sort of captured, the Russians will advance up to the Oskil. Kupyansk will become the logistics outlet, and then the Russians will start pushing out. And you will see this entire area here from Volochansk. Volochansk is also moving. You can see the Russians are advancing here. The entire area from the Seversky Donetsk River all the way to Kupyansk will likely be captured by the Russians. As we can see, they're already moving in here. They're already moving in up here, and they have already moved in over here. So the stage is set. All that needs to happen is Kupyansk needs to fall, and then the Russians need to begin using Kupyansk as a stable logistics location to then spread out over this entire region. And that will probably come when the western half of Kupyansk and this highway is connected. So don't know how long that'll take, but that is my prediction. The Russians will push for Shevchenkove, Izum, and then Chernihiv right here. They'll start pushing out in all of these different directions. There's going to be a massive flower from Kupyansk. I made a tweet about it the other day. Get ready for the Kupyansk flower to begin to blossom. Thank you for your questions, guys. M99 is correct because Iran can do the exact same thing to Israel. No power, no water, no food in Israel. Yeah, well, you say that's great. Okay, so this is a fine idea. If Iran is willing to do that, if they have the capabilities to do that under the pressure of combined U.S.-Israeli airstrikes, right? If the U.S. has full air domination over Iran, right, has full air superiority, they're not going to be able to launch the missiles that you're talking about. So it depends on how it develops. And also, I just want to ask you a question, and anybody can answer this. Do they give a fuck? Do they care if Israel gets bombed? Does Israel care? Does the U.S. care? Did we care during the 12-day war or the 12-day exchange? Did it make any difference? Israel got hit with how many ballistic missiles? Did it change anything? I don't think it did. Let's say they completely wipe Israel off the map. What does that change? I'm genuinely curious. Israel is meant to take the punches. It's why they're there. And every punch they take, they will use as a victim mentality thing. Oh, look, the Iranians are shutting off our power. They are a legitimate threat to the state of Israel. The U.S. needs to help us. Oh, look, they hit our desalinization plants. Iran is a legitimate threat to the state of Israel. We need to take them out. And the U.S. is going to say, yeah, we agree. So there's nothing that Iran can do to Israel that is going to prevent Israel from doing what it is going to do to Iran, besides nuking Israel. That might be the only thing. And that's why I say get a nuke. Because if you have a nuke, you never have to use it. You just threaten everybody with it, right? But ballistic missiles, they're not going to do anything. They're gonna kill a couple Israelis, maybe hit a military base, take out a radar, take out some air defense. What is that going to do? Does that disable the U.S. Air Force? Does that disable the Israeli Air Force? No. Why do you think we just signed a defense agreement with Qatar? So when U.S. aircraft start bombing Iran from Qatar, and then Iran strikes Qatar, we will have legitimate reason to go to war with Iran. That's why. You say no food and no water, but the U.S. will deliver food and water to Israel. Why would they have no food or water? You don't think this will become a national project for the United States? We only spent $36 billion on them since October 7th. We've only given them $36 billion. I'm sure we're going to let them starve. They're a proxy, just like Ukraine is a proxy. They're the most important proxy we have. We will do anything for this proxy, unlike Ukraine, but it's still a proxy. It is meant to take the hits. It is meant to do the despicable, inhuman stuff that the U.S. wants to do, but we can't because we have a population that we have to answer to, right? Nobody in Israel is complaining but to the government. And then everybody in America goes, oh, it's Israel's fault. Israel's the one doing it. Yeah, because we're allowing them to do all of it. And people will say, well, Israel has all of our politicians bought and sold and blackmailed. Sure. I guess. If the entire system works together and works towards a common goal, then it's not really like they control us. It's like we're all on the same page and we're all working towards the same thing. So, here we go. Israel is an evil regime. Yeah, and Britain gives them all of the bombs that they drop, and the U.S. gives them all of the bombs that they drop. So, evil. No, I can't stand this shit, bro. It's not a Star Wars movie. There's no good and bad. There is just humans. There are greedy, savage fucking humans all over the place. We want to kill each other. We want to be better than each other. We want more than the person next to us, and we want more than what we had yesterday. It is the human condition. It is our biological imperative, and we act upon it without remorse. It's not Israel. Israel is just the most extreme manifestation of the human condition. And we support and supply the entire thing. So if they're evil, we're evil. And you just need to start saying we're evil. And nothing is going to change until we stop being evil. Right? If you guys got some questions, get it in. Ugly is subjective. No, I'm ugly, dude. That's objectively factual. There is no ifs, ands, or buts around that. All right, if you guys have some questions, go ahead and get some questions in. I am done with everything that I had to talk about today. So if you guys have some specific topics you want to get into, anything like that, go ahead and shoot it up. Again, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Samantha, you don't need to whine, baby girl. If you had to live in Russia, where would you live? Honestly, I'm very much of the opinion that I would probably like to live in the East. And that's not, I wouldn't want to live around anybody. I would like a nice little piece of land. And this goes for anywhere in any country. I would like a nice little piece of land where I can just have my 6 dogs that run around and run the whole place. That's what I would like. Samantha, shush, go get out of the room. Go on. Whiny dog, can't have that. Samantha's one of my dogs. She's bugging. What can Venezuela do to defend against the U.S.? Not attack them. Do everything to play the victim. Just keep playing the victim. Scream that you're the victim. Just scream and scream and scream and scream and scream and scream and scream. Do everything possible to get every country around you on board with the idea of peace. That has to be a major thing. You don't act aggressively towards Brazil, towards Colombia, towards any of the countries around you. You act incredibly, helpful and generous, and you say, I want to prevent massive destabilization in our region. And then you keep screaming, and you run the wildest propaganda campaign you can possibly run targeted at English-speaking audiences. So the idea of going to war with Venezuela is so universally accepted as a negative that's how it works. Also, what the Venezuelan government could do is immediately disconnect themselves from any of the cartels that we're using as a terrorist designated organization, because that's just a crock of shit to bomb whoever we want, whenever we want, without consequences. So in terms of military, like if the thing kicks off, what are they going to do? Decentralize and just go straight into a guerrilla war. Like there's no other option. Force the U.S. to land boots on the ground and then attack those boots on the ground as viciously and as, you know, Viet Cong-esque as you possibly can. They're not going to win conventionally, and they are going to be decentralized immediately by airstrikes. So you just decentralize preemptively, get command at a much lower level, so that if your top commanders are wiped, you can still fight the conflict. And then we got to fight a guerrilla war. We gotta accept that 1 million of us are going to die for the 80,000 Americans that we kill over the next 10 years of conflict in Venezuela. Like that's sort of what it has to be. And that's why you don't fight wars against the U.S. After the fall of Kupyansk, do you believe the Russians will keep pushing? Yes. What would be some major points we should be looking out for? Same for Pokrovsk, or will it be built around Slavyansk and Kramatorsk? No, I think you're going to see massive Russian pushes into northern Zaporozhye and Dnipropetrovsk regions. I think that is going to become such a problem for the Ukrainians that the Donbass defense line is going to stop even mattering as much as it does currently. I also think you're going to see the same thing in Kupyansk, where the Russians are going to push out of Kupyansk into the Kharkov region. And then if they can reach down to Izum, that defense line in the south doesn't matter. So the Ukrainians are going to have to make very difficult decisions. Are they going to pack in their army to defend Kramatorsk and Slavyansk and potentially get enveloped? Because that's what's going to happen. They're going to end up in a large envelopment. Or are they going to withdraw and let the Russians come in and take it to prevent that massive encirclement? Well, time will tell. And I don't necessarily mean encirclement like the Ukrainians are going to have their hands up and surrender. I mean the same thing we're seeing at Pokrovsk, where the Ukrainians are forced through a tunnel of drone death into a landscape of FABs and LMUR missiles and Iskanders or Smerch or whatever the Russians are firing at them. That's what I mean by an encirclement. I don't mean like the Ukrainian, like in Stalingrad. That's not what I mean. I mean a tactical nightmare. So, hey Scott, which one did you enjoy studying more, the Talmud or the Kabbalah? Talmud for sure. Talmud for sure, dude. Come on. But we're not supposed to talk about that. If you read that, you're not supposed to tell anybody about it. And if you do, I'm telling on you. Don't tell anybody about the Talmud, dude. If I had to recommend one dog breed, which one? I'm considering adopting a puppy. Ooh, I don't know how much space you have. The bigger the dog you get, hopefully the more space you have. If you have unlimited space, or even if you don't have unlimited space, my Great Dane is probably one of my favorite dogs I've ever owned. He has the best personality. It's like having a literal human in your house with you. And they're also super fucking lazy. Mine isn't. Mine is almost like a working dog, but we have one that lives up the road from us. His name is Apollo, I think. And he's like 2 inches shorter than my dog, or 3 inches shorter than my dog, and like probably close to 50 pounds heavier. And it's just a completely different kind of Great Dane. So it kind of depends on who you pick up. My other dog, this one over here, is an American Bulldog. Any dog that has a real thick head like that, unless you're in Britain and they're like illegal or something, probably the sweetest dogs I've ever owned in terms of like unmatched loyalty. If you don't have a lot of space, I'm partial to rat terriers. I just like those dogs. So that's what I would get if I had to get a small dog. But I like big dogs. So. Any update on when the U.S. government is reopening? No, who cares? It's like not even a real thing. Oh, but I like your dog. If that is your dog, is that like a big King Corso or something? Love those dogs. That's like a King Corso is, I put that in the same like subgroup as like the American Bulldog and any of the big headed boys. Like a Mastiff is kind of also in that. They all have the same like breed personality. Calibrated, a few nukes won't save them. I disagree. I disagree. I don't know who you're talking about, Ukraine or Iran, but either way, I fully disagree. I think that the only reason North Korea is still in existence today is because they have a nuke. I think they're untouchable now. There's literally nothing you can do other than internal regime change, which is incredibly difficult in North Korea from a Western perspective. There's nothing we can do to touch them because Seoul will just get deleted, or Okinawa will just get deleted, or Tokyo is gone, or any of that. So no, there is very real consequences for obtaining nukes, and those consequences are usually survival. Yep. Hey Scott, which do you enjoy studying? This is a bunch of questions about the Talmud. If Venezuela cut off drug supply to the U.S., but people in the U.S. agree to regime change. I don't think people in the U.S. are agreeing to regime change now. I think you have a bunch of morons who don't understand international law and think killing drug smugglers is okay. You just got a bunch of dumb people. So no, I don't think anybody is on board for regime change. I don't even think people make the connection between striking narco targets and regime change in Venezuela. Like you're talking about a subgroup of the population who's paying attention and has the intellectual capacity to understand the events as they develop, right? And over here, you have 80% of NPCs and normal people in the world who are working, don't have time, don't care, or don't have the mental capabilities to even process that information. NPCs. Those are the NPCs. What's your general opinion on Preston Stewart? The only Preston I know, and I think this is the same Preston, is the guy who does all the Ukraine maps or the Ukraine war stuff. I think that he is like the most American version of like a Brosant dude who also discovered what TikTok was and then got a bunch of kids that are interested in military affairs to follow him because they have no idea what he's talking about. He's just a Ukraine glazer. That's it. I mean, I don't know. I hear the stuff he says and it's just like, oh, like, how do you believe this shit? If you're an actual military expert, how could you possibly believe this shit? So after the fall of Kupyansk, do you believe the Russians will keep pushing major points? I already answered that. A second Mexican invasion, that we should definitely do that before we invade Venezuela. I think a lot more of the problems are coming from Mexico than from Venezuela. I think a lot of the Venezuelan problems are coming from Mexico. So we could probably solve a lot of those issues much simpler. But the thing about the Mexico regime is that they listen to us. The Venezuelan regime doesn't. So that's the key difference. Scott, here we go. These are my favorite questions. I love these questions. Scott, if you were put in charge of the UA military and were not allowed to negotiate or surrender, what would your strategy be? Can you show on a map? Oh, it has nothing to do with the map. At this point, if I was put in charge right now, what would I do? Oh, I think most of what I would be doing would be taking place over here. I would probably be trying to develop a nuclear weapon of some sort in secret. That's what I would probably be doing until the Russians did something in a way that forced me to stop. Because as far as I can tell, the Russians are not going to do take dramatic action, or there won't be immense repercussions for the Ukrainians for their actions. We've seen ridiculous actions by the Ukrainians. I think the Russians are just accepting to take those hits. Not saying they would allow Ukraine to develop a nuke, but I'm looking at the map and I don't see a way out of this militarily for sure. For sure. Outside of that, I don't know. I might the only option I really see for them is to escalate. And that escalation would have to come from striking like nuclear facilities or something like that, which actually we did have a Ukrainian drone strike a cooling tower at one of the nuclear power plants. Didn't do any damage to it. But there's another interesting event that happens for sure. The refinery strikes are a good idea, but they've hit something like 39 refineries over the past like 2 years, which is not really a substantial number. And that isn't really going to, the previous refineries are being repaired, in 3-6 months time at the most. So the refineries that were hit years ago are up and operational. The refineries that were hit 6 months ago are probably operational, or at least at some capacity. I don't think that there's a very clear way forward. So I would immediately be preparing massive asymmetrical warfare forces for when the military collapse does happen. I would also be preparing numerous probably terrorist attacks or something like that inside of Russia to escalate and force Western intervention. Samantha, that's enough. She's just whining, dude. It's very annoying. What is the end game for Russia? For game in Ukraine for Russia? What is their goal in the long term? Stability. The second that the Russians can achieve a lasting, stable peace in Ukraine, the war stops immediately. So, whenever that happens, whatever that looks like, probably now has to be regime change for that to happen. So likely the goal is going to be much more of Ukraine is Russia and the Ukrainian regime is ousted eventually. They'll have to be. Whether that's by Ukrainians or by the Russians, who knows? The U.S. isn't going to put boots on the ground in Venezuela. It'll be air support for anti-regime forces. Well, that's a good idea, but that doesn't necessarily always work, especially if the regime has a good stranglehold on things like Maduro has for the last however many years. So, it's going to be hard to force a regime change. Not impossible, but just to say they're just going to do it with, airstrikes is just like hopium, I would say. Same as saying that they're going to force regime change in Iran with only airstrikes. That's hopium. If you destroy the entire economy and keep them under airstrikes for 6 months, maybe you'll force regime change. But I don't think the U.S. has the endurance to do that. So it's going to be very difficult without boots on the ground in either situation, for sure. Why would I be related to somebody that has a completely different last name than me? Doesn't even make sense. No, I'm not related to Scott Ritter. How many times have you been invited to Israel? I've gone 3. My patronages, you mean? You guys don't think I've been to the wall? You don't think I've kissed the Wailing Wall? I wouldn't be an American if I hadn't done that. Robert said Scott is not Jewish. And I'm just talking about going to Israel 3 times. Oh, darn. Darn, boys. How about the Chiefs yesterday? Yeah, our defense just couldn't do anything on that last drive, and we threw a pick 6. It's difficult to recover from that. Jacksonville's good, though. Jacksonville is like one of those young, dangerous teams that can keep up with scoring. I think we're still going to make the playoffs and do fine. But All three of our losses have been 1-point losses, so it's not like we're getting blown out or anything. Samantha, out of the room. Go. Out. Go. Can't do that anymore. Can't deal with that. Yeah, no, the XL bullies are, which I don't know. I don't think he's not an XL bully. He's an American bully. Hold on, I'm gonna go shut this door. Get out of here. Get out of here. Okay. All right, I'm back. Scott thinking the U.S. cares if Tokyo goes. No, I don't think that, but I think that the idea of getting nuked is enough to keep the U.S. from trying to force regime change in North Korea. Also, having rogue nukes out there is extremely dangerous, right? That's like one of the most dangerous things. So we've been doing this so long, Scott. People literally are surprised when you even bring up the idea that what we're doing is. I know. Yep, it's just ingrained in us. We've been propagandized so much towards it that you don't even recognize that it is literally against our own international law. Scott, international law does not exist and is the cope for the weak. Yeah, no, listen. I'm not here arguing for international law. I'm saying we use that we are hypocritical in our use of international law, pretending like it matters, pretending like it is the guiding rules for the world that we created, and then we don't even follow them. So that's why I bring up international law. That's the only reason, because most Americans still believe in international law. See, this is a thing that you guys are all red-pilled, and you know that international law is not real, but Americans do. We have been told our entire lives that this is the rules for the world. International law is the most important thing, and it is our job to maintain and defend that international law, except when it's against Israel, and then we say the courts aren't even real. We say the ICC doesn't even exist. What are you guys talking about? The ICC is right next to the Epstein files in your imagination. Okay. Calibrated. Have you seen the reports that elite drone unit Rubicon using Chinese radars? And why don't we see more open weapons trading with them between NATO? Because really there's nothing that the Chinese have that the Russians need. I mean, the things that the Russians do need that the Chinese have, you've seen them get them, right? The go-karts, probably like motorcycles and stuff like that are coming from China. That is a huge aspect of it. But Russia has so much of its own military industrial manufacturing that what it really needs is just some components and stuff from China to then assemble what they need. So the Chinese are definitely helping. Also, guys, the Chinese, all of what you see from North Korea, a lot of what you see coming from North Korea is the Chinese investing in North Korea to then use their manufacturing, their population to supply weapons and stuff to Russia. So a lot of like the artillery shells from China or from North Korea and stuff, all of that manufacturing is being it's not exclusively Chinese, but it is being supported directly by the Chinese. So when you talk about why aren't the Chinese helping the Russians? Well, first and foremost, they clearly don't really need that much help. I don't think there's anything that the Chinese can really offer the Russians that the Russians don't have an analog for. And maybe some radars and stuff like that are being used because those are, again, hyper specialized instruments that the Chinese might have a better version of. But it's not like the Russians don't have their own radars, right? So they don't need a bunch of Chinese arms coming into the country to fight the war. What they need is the Chinese buying all of their minerals and oil resources and energy. That's what the Russians need from the Chinese, which the Chinese are fulfilling very well, actually, compared to what I would have expected with how the Chinese behave around Western pressure and stuff. Scott, I think your last name is Netanyahu. No, my last name is Polish. I changed it to Netanyahu because I have to blend in. My last name is actually Ukrainian, and I am from the Holy Land. Get out of my home. Question, what is happening in Georgia? How is it connected to Russia? So the protests that you're seeing in Georgia are the same protests that we saw around the same time last year. These are U.S. NGO attempts to get teenage kids to overthrow their government through violence. We saw this in Nepal. It's always kids 18 to 22 because they're the dumb retards that you can manipulate, propagandize to. They're in college, they're in schools that, like a National Endowment for Democracy or some other NGO pumps money and information into, and then you utilize those kids against the governments. Georgia is not having it. Georgia seems to be one of the only governments in the world that is actually looking out for its own interests. It looks like Hungary, Georgia, and I don't know, maybe North Korea or something like that is genuinely looking out for their country's interests. And they are not allowing a Maidan to take place in their country, which is what the West is actively trying to do. If that is to take place, then you will see the Ukrainization of Georgia, where Georgia will be used against Russia, much like it was in 2008. And the Georgians don't want that. The only people who want that are people who don't live in Georgia. It's much like in Moldova, where they just had elections, where they banned all of the pro-Russian parties that everybody was going to vote for because they're a threat to democracy. And then everybody who votes for the government that it controls Moldova don't even live in Moldova. It's all spurious. So. Did you put the porn picture in the wall? I did. I snuck in there and I just put a little crucifix on it. And I said, Jeebus was here. BB Trump and Scott will bring world peace. The dynamic trio. It'd be so funny if I could be up there with them. I'd make the funniest faces during press conferences when somebody said some out-of-pocket shit or something. I'd be like, okay, let's see if any more questions in here. How about the drone army that China is building? I haven't specifically looked, but I mean, it's China. They have massive AI options when it comes to that. They have incredible manufacturing capabilities. So yeah, I wouldn't doubt that every single person in the next conflict has a FPV with their name already written on it that will face track them down and annihilate them in some fiery explosion. What do you think? What do you think of Ukraine accusing China of providing intelligence to Russia via satellite? I mean, the Russians have so many satellites now. I don't even think that that's a requirement. Potentially in 2022, when the Russians were a little bit short on satellites, but over the last 3 years, they've launched so many satellites into space, military satellites, that they have a very, very sophisticated satellite array now. I do not think that they need Chinese satellite information. LML, so is Netanyahu. I don't think Netanyahu is he is Polish, but the name isn't, right? He changed his name from the Polish name. Could you please give a shout out to my best friend Kiko? He watches you regularly, but he's very shy to type anything in chat. Listen. if this is a joke and you're trying to get me to say something and you're going to use the word Kiko to manipulate my words into something else like Candace or Bofa, I'm going to be upset. But Kiko, thanks for watching, dude. If you are a genuine human being and not a fake thing that's going to be used as a joke, I appreciate your viewership, my friend. Don't be shy. The only thing shy does is creates regrets. But the way you said that, the way you worded that, makes when you say somebody's shy, can you just say hi to my sister Candace? She's super shy. Like, that's what that sounds like. NGO is a cute euphemism. Yes, it is. It is a cute euphemism for sure, and we've gotten a lot of use out of it as well. Scott for president. Oh, good luck, dude. Good luck. I would love it. I would love it. Get me in there. I'll take that bullet right away, dude. I get shot so fast. Like, it's not even like, I don't even get my first 100 days. I don't get to make a bad impression. I don't get to mix things up at all. I get shot like that, immediately, just JFK'd all over the place. So if we want it, it's good. I'll go out that way. The most manly thing you can do is be assassinated for your ideas. Calibrated, you should do an interview with a Russian unit. You have the reach for it. I think the audience would appreciate it. Yeah, sure. Listen, I'm always very careful about talking to people because I have a issue with sources and stuff, because I think a lot of information is intentionally fed out. And you see this a lot in the Ukrainian information space, where you just have a lot of these frontline sources that are just touting bullshit, and it's just not helpful. I'm very cautious about all that information. So if you have somebody in particular that you would like me to get a hold of, send me a DM, something like that. I know a couple that I could probably get into touch with, but I just have never thought about doing it. Say hi to my shy friend. Hey, enough with your shy friends, guys. Eugene is in the chat right now. Scott, are you related to Scott Steiner? My last name is Starrett, boys. My last name is Starrett. If their last name is Starrett, I might be related to them. Or Smith. If you find a Smith, I might also be related to them. But outside of that, no, sir. Probably RFK assassinated. Yeah, but I'm not going to be some stupid fucking bitch-ass guy who gets assassinated in a kitchen by a Lebanese dude. Come on. What do you take me for? With a pistol? You couldn't even kill Reagan with a pistol, guys. Come on. Vote for me and I'll get JFK day one. Yeah, that is legitimately probably a winning slogan. Guys, vote for me. And you know what's going to happen? I'm going to get shot in the fucking face the second I start, because I'm not going to do what they tell me to do. Guys, I don't even make it on the ballot because I just don't play ball like that. So ooh, if Kiko is a fake name, I'm going to be so mad. Guys, let's do it. Boys, round him up. Figure out who this Kiko is. That's funny. Do you think Sirhan actually shot RFK? No. I just think it's funny to pretend like it was a bitch move to get assassinated like that. Like he even knew it was coming. He should have probably known, but and now RFK Jr. is married to an Israeli. It's awesome. Or she's Jewish. I don't know if she's an Israeli, but do you think YouTube shadow ban is a real thing? Absolutely. I think they admitted to it, didn't they? During the Biden administration. What makes you think it's any different now? Same with Facebook and everything. 2028, most likely the end. Who knows, brother? Who knows? Do I like fish sticks? What do I look like, a gay fish, bro? Get out of here, dog. The jumbo fish sticks are yummy. Kiko. That's going to be the joke on the channel now, is Kiko. Have I talked about France today? No. Is there something to talk about in France? They can't keep a government and Macron is a fucking idiot. Like, I don't know. What what else is there to say? They're trying to maintain power and go to war with Russia, but they can't even maintain their own government. So yeah. Whale sticks, maybe. Gay whale. Fish sticks in Norway are pretty good. Get them, boys. Get them. Get them. Scott, what's your best war movie? Ooh. Well, I watched Saving Private Ryan when I was like 5 years old with my dad. He said, "Sit down, son. I have a scene with a guy screaming for his mom and putting his guts back in his stomach on Normandy Beach for you to watch with me." And so that one really got me. That one messed me up pretty bad because I was super young and I had never thought about my insides being outside of my body like that. And then also like wanting my mom there while that's happening is like crazy to me. So Saving Private Ryan's up there for sure. I really like Enemy at the Gates, although I'm not like using that as like a accurate war movie or anything like that. But yeah, I think that those two are probably my most enjoyable to watch. Band of Brothers is also good, but the stabbing scene is the worst. Yeah, that one's pretty bad. That one's pretty bad. Also, there's one other scene that always gets me. The scene when they're trying to fight the tiger. I think it's a tiger. Not the one where at the end where he's like shooting, but the tank is rolling down the street and the guys have the sticky bombs, like the grenade bundles with like they put like stuff on the outside and then like tar to make them sticky. And the guy is just sitting there and he's about to throw it and then he doesn't throw it. He just explodes. That one's pretty bad. Everyone go watch Hard Boiled, not a war movie though. Okay. Oh yeah, Bridge Over the River Kwai is pretty good. I honestly forgot that other war movies existed. That's so crazy. I forgot other wars existed. That's so crazy. I was literally just running through World War II movies that entire time. I do like World War I movies. I think that which is the one that just came out, All Quiet on the Western Front. That one was pretty good. The Pacific is okay. I don't think it's as good of writing as Band of Brothers. Let's see. Yeah. Why weren't you on the boats with Greta Thunberg? Because I would have shot back. That's why. That's why. Like I said, guys, I'm a rogue agent. I am a loose cannon. I cannot be trusted. I am a wild card. If they would have got me on that boat, the second those Israelis would have come up, I would have started shooting. And then I would have made that flotilla really count. It would have made a difference because they would have sunk so many of those ships with so many of those innocent people on. And then the governments would have had to do something. Yeah, just lay down some suppressing fire until my boat got rocked. It's just propaganda. Like those things are just propaganda. It's not real. Also, Greta is like the worst ambassador because she's wearing like autistic 15-year-old girl clothes. She's got like a hat on, like the little like frog hat. It's like, what? You're a CIA operation, like, or an MI6 operation to push climate change like a decade ago. What the hell are you doing? It's like, it's so weird. I wonder what her life is like because I feel like those kind of people that are sort of railroaded into those, she was like missing school to go talk at like the UN General Assembly and shit. Like, what the fuck kind of life do you have after that? That's crazy, dude. All right, guys. I'm going to head out. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure I answered all these questions. Yes, I did. All right. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been episode number 8 of Casual Calibration. I appreciate all of you tuning in. We had 3,000 people in here today at whatever. I don't know if that's not at max, but that's in total. So I appreciate all of the viewership today. Be sure to keep the bell on my page so you guys are notified when I go live and when I post videos. There will be a map update video, a full map update video that will come out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today, and I will see you on the next one. Take care and be safe.